My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And today the name of our show is Wetland Environment. And I have with me an expert on wetland. I have with me Erin Pande, and she's an environmental specialist for Engineering Resource Associates, Inc. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in biology with concentration in environmental studies and geology from Augustana College in 2001. Erin has extensive experience in wetland science. She has performed wetland delineation in all of the northeastern Illinois counties and in Kankakee and in Kendall County. She pairs her strong knowledge in wetland mitigation, restoration, and enhanced utilizing plant hydrology, soil and vegetation planning, and management with her knowledge of environmental regulated issues involving northeastern Illinois, federal and state programs. She is highly experienced in environmental science, including water quality best management practice implementation. She recently researched and wrote a water quality best management practice manual for county-wide implementation in DuPage County. The manual provides guidance on cost-effective best management practice for a highly urbanized county that are also appropriate for the county physical and geographic characteristics. And you know, we could apply this for Cook County, your best management practices that you wrote. And I'm glad you're on our show, Erin.
Thank you, Commissioner Avila.
And you know, Erin, we're all talking about the environment, and we're all talking about how to treat our water pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is talking about wetlands. And your scientific community, we all know in the engineering industry what wetland is.
Yes.
But what is wetland?
Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and environmental protection agencies jointly define wetlands as those areas that are inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater for a frequency and duration sufficient to support, and under normal circumstances do support, a prevalence of vegetation typically adapted for life in saturated soil conditions. And wetlands generally include swamps and marshes and bogs and things of that nature. So basically what that definition means, that is, in order for a wetland to be, in order for an area to be considered a wetland, that three criteria must be met. And those three criteria are hydrology, soils, and vegetation. In order for an area to have wetland hydrology, the soil or the area must be inundated or saturated within the root zone or within 12 inches of the Earth's surface for consecutively for approximately 5% of the growing season, or 9 to 14 days. In order for an area to have a wetland or a hydric soil, the soil needs to be sufficiently wetted for a duration long enough during the growing season to develop anaerobic or oxygen depleted conditions.
Now, when you mention anaerobic, what does anaerobic mean?
It lacks oxygen.
Lacks oxygen.
Right. Okay, and in order for an area to have wetland vegetation, the vegetation must dominate greater than 50% of the of each stratum. So the herbaceous, the shrub, and the tree layer must be dominated by plants that are adapted for life in anaerobic soil conditions. So these types of vegetation have developed over time things that allow them to exchange gases in soils that don't have any oxygen in them. So things like parenchyma cells and lenticels, those are all gas exchange systems that these plants have developed.
And you know, so basically, wetland is is land just immersed with water.
Mm-hmm.
That has aquatic life,
mm-hmm.
Plants,
right?
And that's a wetland. And you know, living here in Cook County, we live in Cook County here, and I think our kids and our adults, we all probably haven't seen too many wetlands around here in Cook County, because we're built up we're an urbanized county.
Right.
There. Now, what percentage of Illinois has historically been a wetland?
Well, currently about 2.5% of Illinois is wetlands.
Currently.
Currently.
2.5%.
2.5%. Right. But since 1818, 90% of the wetlands in Illinois have been lost. 1818. 90%.
90%.
Right. So, and I have a comparison slide here that shows the difference in loss of wetlands in Illinois and the difference in loss of wetlands versus the United States.
Oh, okay.
So if you could bring that up. Okay. Basically, this shows that Illinois has lost 90%, and that and it compares that to the wetlands lost in all of the United States. And you can see that Illinois has lost a significantly amount more. And actually, wetland loss in Illinois is ranked 6th in all of the continental U.S.
So Illinois lost 90%.
Right.
And the United States has lost approximately 23%.
I believe it's 54.
53 or
54. Yeah.
And so here in Illinois, we because of our populated state, is that correct?
And also agricultural use.
Agricultural use,
Yeah.
and predominantly most of the wetlands were located near the Great Lakes, near Lake Michigan.
Yes, there was a lot of
waterways.
wetlands, right?
Yes.
Right. In 1818, there were approximately 8.2 million acres of wetlands, and now currently there is only 1,250,000 left. And so out of that 1,250,000, only about 920,000 of those wetlands are naturally occurring.
Naturally
wetlands.
occurring?
Right. So a lot of those wetlands were created by human activity, such as impoundments and dikes, and they're man-made.
Man-made.
Right. And generally, naturally occurring wetlands provide a little bit better benefit, but the man-made ones also provide various functions.
No, we're living here in Cook County. I'm the commissioner at the Water Reclamation District, and we cover the whole county. And we treat wastewater. And now we're trying to find other solutions besides chemically treating wastewater.
Right.
And right now we want to do it biologically.
Right.
And so now, what kind of wetlands can be found here in Cook County?
Well, there are numerous different kinds of wetlands that can be found in Cook County today, and I have slides of the 4 different types that are typically found.
And
and the first slide here is of emergent wetland.
Emergent wetlands, and that's a type of wetland.
It's a type of wetland.
And emergent is that water is merged with all water.
Yeah, typically emergent wetlands are inundated for prolonged periods of time during the growing season. Okay, and the vegetation that you're typically going to find in an emergent wetland is cattails and river bulrush and arrowhead. And this is actually a picture of Bussey Woods.
Bussey Woods?
Right, and that's in Cook County near Schaumburg. Okay, and you're going to see some cattails in the background there behind the canoers. And that's typical of an emergent or marsh wetland.
Now this wetland, is this on Forest Reserve property or?
Yes, I believe it is on Forest Reserve property. And I also have a picture of an egret there. And egrets are something that you'll see a lot of in Bussey Woods because there is a rookery. And a rookery is a place where herons and egrets go to nest and rear their young.
Now, if a group wants to see wetlands, they could go out there on Bussey Woods and see what a wetland is.
What an emergent wetland
What is an emergent land.
Right.
Okay.
And the next slide that I have here is a wet or a sedge meadow. And a wet or a sedge meadow is an area that is saturated, the soil is saturated, but isn't necessarily flooded or inundated.
Okay.
And typical vegetation that you'll see in a wet or a sedge meadow is sedges and rushes and wildflowers.
Now, would you know if wetlands are predominantly on public property or private property?
They're on both.
They're on both?
Yeah, they don't respect property boundaries. So you'll find them on both public and private lands.
Well, that's good that the private property, that if they do have wetlands, that they're trying to preserve the wetlands.
Correct.
Where on public property, we should preserve wetlands, or we should preserve wetlands regardless.
Right. Right. The next type of wetland I'm going to talk about that's typically found in Cook County is a forested wetland. And forested wetlands are wooded areas that are flooded frequently but aren't inundated for very prolonged periods of time. And I have a picture here of a forested wetland, and in the middle picture you can see that this wetland is dry, and there's a habitat box there for wood ducks. And the picture to the right is that same wetland just 1 month later, and you can see that it has just rained and that wetland is completely full of water.
Well, would you say that that type of wetland, the forest type wetland, is predominantly along our waterways?
Yeah, you'll find a lot of forested wetlands in bottomland forests, or forests that are next to streams and rivers and things like that.
You know, they just had the UN in Bali. They just met in Bali. 180 countries just met in Bali, and they're talking about climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time where 180 countries signed an agreement to subsidize our countries that have rainforests,
mm-hmm.
to solve the global warming, because the rainforest draws in the CO2s.
Mm-hmm.
And this area here helps the forestry helps
right.
Bring climate change,
right,
because it absorbs the CO2s.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last kind of type of wetland that you're going to find in Cook County is a fen.
A fen?
A fen.
F-E-R-N.
F-E-N.
Oh, F-E-N. Okay, F-E-N.
Yes.
Okay.
And a fen is a special type of wetland because it develops under a special set of circumstances. And the hydrology to a fen is fed by a calcareous seep or spring. Okay, and all of the calcium and magnesium from the water is deposited in the soil of the fen. Okay, and so that causes the soil to become, or the water to become alkaline or have a higher pH.
Yes.
So that gives rise to a bigger variety of vegetation that you wouldn't normally see in any other wetland. And I have a picture here, and this is Bluff Spring Fen, and that's in the city of Elgin. Okay, and Bluff Spring Fen is, I believe, owned by the city of Elgin and MWRD. And it's in an absolutely beautiful area, has tons of wetland species in it, and if you can get a chance to get out to Elgin to take a look at it, I'd highly recommend it, because it gives you a good example of a really, really nice wetland area that you can still find in Cook County.
And these are the 4 types of wetlands we have in Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
And your groups that want to, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or anyone that wants to see wetlands, they could visit these 4 types of wetlands we have in Cook County.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about wetlands. You explain what wetland is: submerged ground, providing enough water for aquatic life, plants. That's predominantly what a wetland is.
Right.
But why is wetland so important? Why is your environmental groups want to see more wetlands? Why Water Reclamation District wants to see more wetlands?
Well, wetlands provide valuable hydrologic, water quality, biologic, and social and economic functions. Okay, the hydrologic functions that wetlands provide is flood protection, stream flow maintenance, shoreline protection, and groundwater recharge. So during a flood, when it storms, those wetlands attenuate all of that flood water, and they store it until the streams and lakes lower.
It's like a sponge then.
It's like a sponge, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then over time, the wetland slowly releases the water back into the stream and lake, and then during dry periods, the wetlands contribute base flow, and that's additional water to the streams, which helps dilute all of the point source and non-point source pollutants in our lakes and rivers.
And when you say point source and non-point source, what does point source mean?
It's a point source is a direct outlet of contaminants into a river. So let's say you have a factory and it has a point source, so it's directly coming out. Right. Yeah. And non-point source is things like stormwater. So you have all this water, and it's flowing over the streets and the land and everything, and it goes into a storm sewer, and then into the into the creek or lake.
Right, and so that's a non-point source, which is a big problem we're having, that non-point source.
Right, exactly. It's a major contributor to pollution.
Now, how do wetlands help clean wastewater?
How do wetlands help clean wastewater?
Yes, and and first of all, what is wastewater?
Well, wastewater can be described as anything really. I mean, it's
Well, like at the district, we treat wastewater.
right.
And wastewater is what you flush down your toilet.
Right.
We all like, there's two things that we need in our life. I mean, we need a lot of things, but two things that we really need. We need to drink water because our body is made up 2/3 of water, right? And we need to go to the washroom.
Right.
So when we flush the toilet, wash our dishes, we live in a combined sewer area.
Right.
It collects the wastewater and the stormwater.
And the stormwater, right.
And that's wastewater, and everything comes to our plant.
Right.
And we treat wastewater. That's wastewater. So how does wetland treat wastewater?
Well, wetlands can not only treat wastewater, but they can also treat agricultural wastewater and runoff, and they can also treat stormwater runoff. So runoff from urban and suburban lands, so areas that aren't in the combined sewer as well.
Yes.
So you can use them for both wastewater and stormwater runoff.
Oh, excellent.
So basically that.
Let's talk about you mentioned about agriculture. When they grow crops, they use
fertilizer,
right? A lot of nitrogen in it,
right?
And also pesticides,
right? And all of that runs off.
Runoffs, yes, and that's what, or else in an urban area, if you have your lawns, they also use pesticides. So if it rains, that runoff will come into the system. So anything that we put on the ground,
yes,
anything that
has
you
the
could think
potential to run
has
off.
the potential is the runoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wetlands have proven to be well suited for treating municipal wastewater, which is sewage, and agricultural and industrial and stormwater runoff from urban areas. There's a number of physical and chemical and biological processes that operate concurrently in constructed and natural wetlands to provide contaminant removal. Now, I have a slide here that shows all of the different contaminant removal mechanisms. So if you could bring that up and then leave it up while I'm talking about this so you can kind of follow along, if that's okay. The first removal process I'm going to talk about is physical. Physical removal. And wetlands are highly effective at physically removing contaminants associated with particulate matter. Surface water typically moves really slowly through wetlands because of the dense vegetation and floating vegetation. Okay, so sediment and filtration of the suspended solids that's in the water is promoted by the low flow velocity through the wetland. So the water comes in and starts to move really slow, and so all the stuff that's suspended in that water begins to fall out.
And it's similar to a wastewater plant. When it first enters our plants, it hits a bar stream, and we collect all the debris before it enters into our plant, and then it goes to a grid chamber, and all the heavy particles settles down.
Do you have like laminar plates in there?
Laminar plates? No, it's just a bar stream.
Okay.
So, Sherry, you'd like to bring that up again, Sherry? And that's the first process.
Yes, that is physical removal.
That's physical, and that's the first step as it comes into the wetlands.
Right.
There.
Right. And then, well, they all operate concurrently. So everything, is happening all at once. It's not just, they comes in and physically is removed. It's, everything is all happening at the same time.
And this is all biological, just nature.
Right. Nature working working at its best.
Whereas us at the wastewater plant, we use chemicals.
Right.
So,
right. Okay, so the next process that I'm going to talk about is biological.
Biological, and when you say biological, Sherry is going to bring up the next slide on biological.
Well, biological, it's that table. I have a slide there that's a table, right? And it has all these different removal processes on there, so I'm going to kind of outline that.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so wetlands remove contaminants via plant uptake. Contaminants that are also essential plant nutrients, or nutrients that plant would normally use in just normal life, are taken up, and these nutrients include nitrate, ammonium, and phosphate. And so the rate of contaminant removal by plants varies depending on how much that contaminant is already in that plant.
So it takes out the phosphates and the ammonium?
Right. So the actual plant itself will suck up all of those nutrients.
And why is it important to take out those nutrients?
Because nitrogen and phosphorus cause the receiving water, so the stream or the lake, to have too much nutrients, and it causes things like algal blooms. Okay,
yes.
Right, and so then that depletes all of the oxygen in the
dissolved oxygen.
Right, and so it causes a big problem, big kind of ugly mess, and
yes.
Nobody likes to see a lot of algae.
Right,
right,
and that's why it's so important that this process to eliminate that phosphorus and ammonia, because recently in the summer here in Lake Michigan, we had in Indiana, we had a company that wanted to upgrade their facilities. And by doing that, they're going to discharge a lot of sludge and additional ammonium into Lake Michigan. And there was a public outcry. And I guess they signed, I forgot how many petitions, hundreds of thousands of petitions, to try and stop the industry from discharging the sludge and the ammonium. And because of the our quality of water in Lake Michigan. So the public is being more aware of phosphorus and ammonium.
Right.
And here in our state, they just passed a law to eliminate phosphates in detergent soap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But unfortunately, going through our plant at the Water Reclamation District is that phosphate is also the other thing that contribute to phosphate going through our plant is beverages. Drinking beverages amounts
pop,
of
right?
Yes, pop amounts to 10%. But I don't know if the public or our lawmakers, maybe they should to pass a law eliminating that in the soft drinks, beverage drink. It's a big industry.
Right. Oh,
so.
yeah, it's huge. Everybody drinks pop.
Yeah.
Well, to get back, basically what happens is those plants take those nutrients up, and then sometimes, during the winter, the plants begin to die.
Yes.
Okay, so then those plants are accumulated in the bottom of the wetland. They begin to decompose. But when that plant decomposes, it loses some of the nutrients that it took up. Okay, but if the plant decomposes and it's completely flooded, then that decomposition doesn't happen because there's no oxygen to make those plants decompose. And so if your rate of accumulation is greater than your rate of decomposition, you could begin to form something called peat. Okay, and so then those nutrients that were in those plants aren't going to be released. Those can accumulate for years. There's peat beds that people actually will farm, so you can use peat in your garden. And sometimes people use peat in BMPs to absorb some of
and
the...
what's BMP?
I'm sorry. A BMP is a best management practice.
Yes, okay.
So those are practices that you use to remove pollutants from wastewater and stormwater.
Now, why are wetland? What is a wetland buffer? Wetlands benefit wildlife, right? And so, how does it benefit wildlife?
How does it benefit wildlife?
Yes.
Sorry. Well, many species of plants and animals depend on wetlands for habitat and nutrients. Okay, and wetlands have a high rate of productivity. And when you have a high rate of productivity, you'll generally have a complex food web, which gives rise to a variety of animal species that can be supported in the wetlands. So you have mammals and waterfowl and reptiles and amphibians all in your wetland area. And nearly 1/2 of all endangered species require wetlands for survival, actually.
1/2?
1/2, yeah, nearly 1/2.
And that's why wetlands is so important.
Yeah, I mean, they provide valuable resources for wildlife. So.
Now, what is a wetland buffer?
Well, a wetland buffer is the area that surrounds a wetland that protects the functions that we talked about of a wetland. Okay, and so the buffer can range from very narrow to very wide depending on the quality of the wetland.
Now, if I own a property here in Cook County,
Mhm.
let's say I own a lot of land in Cook County, how would I know if to locate a wetland here in Cook County?
Well, in Cook County and in the rest of the nation, there's something called the National Wetland Inventory.
Okay.
Okay, and that is a mapping product that is produced by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Okay, and I have a slide here that was just brought up, and this is actually Cook County.
Cook County.
And the borders of Cook County are shown there, and then all of the yellow areas are wetlands that were identified by the National Wetland Inventory.
And that's here in Elma, you said, or Cook County?
This is Cook County.
Cook County.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting, because here in Cook County we don't have many wetlands left.
Well, yeah, as you can see from the slide, that right in Chicago you don't have a lot, but as you go north and south and west, you begin to see a lot more wetlands. Right.
And that's why it's important to save these wetlands.
Right.
For what you just discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Their wetland is very important.
Right.
There. Now, what are the current regulations regarding wetlands?
Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regulates wetlands under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act.
Okay. And so it's under the Army?
Yes, the Army Corps of Engineers regulates wetlands. Okay, and they regulate jurisdictional wetlands. What that means is that they have to be a navigable water, something that you can ride a boat in, or they have to be a river or a lake or a small tributary that drains to a navigable water. And they also regulate all of the wetlands that are associated with those lakes and rivers and streams. But they have to provide a significant nexus, or restore and maintain the physical and biological and chemical properties of a navigable waters, as defined by 404. What the Army Corps does not regulate is isolated wetlands.
Isolated wetlands?
Mm-hmm.
But they're still important.
They're still very important, right? Yeah, you can have, there are some really, really big isolated wetlands out there that are very high quality. So, I mean, it's really important to regulate those.
And on these isolated wetlands, developers probably want to build something on it.
Right. And those aren't currently regulated because of the Swank decision.
The Swank decision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that happened right here in Cook County.
And all living creatures